For almost 100 years, Egypt, the greatest civilization of the ancient world, was ruled not by native Egyptian pharaohs, but by kings from the south. Kings with dark skin. Kings from the land of Kush. Kings who called themselves the rightful heirs of the gods of Egypt. They conquered Thebes. They sat on the throne of the two lands. They built temples, restored ancient rites, and declared themselves the true protectors of Ma'at. And then, history almost erased them. This is the story of the forgotten kingdom of Kush, and the Black Pharaohs who once ruled Egypt. South of Egypt, beyond the first cataract of the Nile, lay a powerful and sophisticated kingdom that most people today have never heard of. This was the Kingdom of Kush. For centuries it existed in the shadow of its northern neighbor. Sometimes it was dominated by Egypt. Sometimes it traded with Egypt as an equal. And at one extraordinary moment in history, it did the unthinkable. It conquered Egypt itself. The rulers of Kush did not simply invade and plunder. They presented themselves as the legitimate pharaohs of Egypt. They adopted Egyptian titles, worshipped Egyptian gods, and claimed to restore the pure traditions of the past. For nearly a century, these black African kings ruled the two lands as the 25th Dynasty. Yet for a long time their story was marginalized, misunderstood, or simply left out of popular histories of ancient Egypt. In this video we will uncover who the Kushites really were, how they rose to power, how they conquered the greatest civilization of their age, and why their remarkable chapter was almost forgotten. Long before the Kushites conquered Egypt, their land was already a place of power, wealth, and complex culture. The region we now call Nubia stretched along the Nile south of the first cataract. It was rich in gold, ivory, ebony, incense, and cattle, resources that Egypt desperately needed. For more than 1,000 years the relationship between the two lands swung between trade, cultural exchange, and open conflict. During the New Kingdom, Egyptian pharaohs conquered large parts of Nubia and ruled it as a colony. They built massive temples, appointed viceroys, and tried to Egyptianize the local elite. But even under Egyptian control, a distinct Nubian identity survived. When the New Kingdom collapsed around 1070 BC, Egypt withdrew from the south. In the power vacuum that followed, a new political center began to rise near the sacred mountain of Jebel Barkal. This was Nubia. Here, local rulers gradually transformed from chiefs into kings. They adopted Egyptian royal titles, built pyramids for their burials, and declared themselves the chosen of the god Amun. The great temple of Amun at Jebel Barkal became the spiritual heart of the emerging kingdom of Kush. By the early 8th century BC, while Egypt itself was fractured into multiple competing dynasties, the kings of Nubia had created a strong, centralized state. They controlled the gold mines, commanded disciplined armies, and saw themselves as the true defenders of Ma'at, the ancient Egyptian concept of cosmic order. In their eyes, Egypt had fallen into chaos. And it was their sacred duty to restore it. This conviction would soon drive them north, not as invaders, but as restorers of a broken civilization. In the middle of the 8th century BC, Egypt was a shadow of its former self. The country was divided between rival local rulers. In the north, a family of Libyan chiefs controlled the delta. In the south, the city of Thebes still held religious prestige, but little real power. The once mighty pharaonic state had fragmented into competing principalities. It was into this chaos that the Kushite king Piye, also known as Piye, marched north around 727 BC. Piye did not present himself as a foreign conqueror. In the great victory Stela he left behind, he portrayed his campaign as a holy war to restore the proper worship of the gods and the unity of the two lands. He claimed that the god Amun himself had ordered him to bring Egypt back under righteous rule. His army moved methodically up the Nile. City after city either surrendered or was forced into submission. When he reached the sacred city of Thebes, the priests of Amun welcomed him. Further north, some local rulers resisted, but Piye's forces proved stronger. The climax of the campaign came at Memphis. After a fierce battle, the great city fell. The remaining northern rulers, including the powerful chief Tefnacht, were compelled to submit. Piye accepted their surrender, performed rituals in the temples, and then, remarkably, returned south to Napata, leaving Egypt under the control of loyal vassals. For the first time in history, a king from deep in Africa had become the overlord of Egypt. Piye's victory Stela still stands as one of the most extraordinary documents of the ancient world. In it, a black African ruler speaks with the full authority of an Egyptian pharaoh. And history is forced to listen. After Piye, the kings of Kush did not remain distant overlords. They took direct control of Egypt and established what historians now call the 25th Dynasty. The most important of these rulers were Shabaka, Shebitku, and especially Taharqa. Shabaka, who came to power around 716 BC, moved the royal residence to Memphis and fully assumed the role of Egyptian pharaoh. He is remembered as a pious restorer. According to later tradition, he ordered the copying of important religious texts that had been damaged or neglected, including a famous theological document known as the Shabaka Stone. On this stone, the creation myth of Memphis was carefully preserved in stone for eternity. His successor Shebitku continued the policy of strong central control, and close ties with the priesthood of Amun. Under these early Kushite pharaohs, Egypt regained a sense of unity it had lacked for generations. Then came Taharqa, the most famous and powerful of the Black Pharaohs. Taharqa ruled for nearly 30 years. He was a giant of a man according to some accounts, a vigorous builder, and a confident military leader. He left his name on temples from Nubia, all the way to the Nile Delta. He expanded the great temple of Amun at Karnak, constructed new monuments at Jebel Barkal, and presented himself as the chosen son of the god. Interestingly, the Bible itself mentions Taharqa. In the second book of Kings he appears as Tirhakah, king of Kush, who marched against the Assyrian army during the reign of Hezekiah of Judah. For a moment, the fate of Jerusalem was tied to the decisions of a black African pharaoh sitting on the throne of Egypt. Under these kings, Egypt experienced a genuine cultural and political revival. The Kushite pharaohs did not erase Egyptian tradition, they claimed to purify and restore it. At the same time, their statues and reliefs clearly show their African features, reminding us that the rulers of the two lands in this era came from the south. For almost a century, the most powerful throne in the ancient world belonged to the Black Pharaohs of Kush. The reign of Taharqa marked both the height of Kushite power and the beginning of its end. For a time, The Black Pharaoh controlled a vast territory stretching from the heart of Sudan to the Mediterranean coast. He built on a grand scale, projected strength, and even intervened in the politics of the Near East. When the Assyrian Empire began expanding westward, Taharqa became one of the few rulers willing to challenge it. But the Assyrians were a different kind of enemy. In 671 BC, the Assyrian king Esarhaddon launched a massive invasion of Egypt. Despite fierce resistance, the Assyrian army defeated Taharqa's forces and captured Memphis. Taharqa was forced to retreat south. The Assyrians installed local vassals and proclaimed their dominance over Egypt. Taharqa did not give up. He returned, retook parts of the country, and continued the struggle. After his death, his successor Tutankhamun made one final attempt to restore full Kushite control. He marched north, seized Memphis, and briefly revived Kushite rule. The Assyrian response was brutal. In 663 BC the army of Ashurbanipal advanced again, this time sacking Thebes itself, one of the most dramatic events in Egyptian history. The great temples of Amun were looted, and the political power of the Kushite dynasty in Egypt was broken forever. Tutankhamun retreated to Nubia. The 25th dynasty had come to an end. In the aftermath, a new power rose in the Nile Delta. A local ruler named Psamtik I, initially an Assyrian vassal, gradually unified Egypt and founded the 26th dynasty, the last native Egyptian dynasty of the Pharaonic age. Under the Saite kings, Egypt would experience one final flowering before the Persian conquest. The Black Pharaohs had ruled Egypt for less than 100 years. But in that short time they had left a mark that could not be completely erased. After their expulsion from Egypt, the kings of Kush did not disappear. They continued to rule an independent and prosperous kingdom from their new capital at Meroe, further south along the Nile. For centuries the Kingdom of Kush remained a major power in Africa, famous for its iron production, distinctive pyramids, and unique culture that blended Egyptian, African, and local traditions. Yet in the popular story of ancient Egypt, the Black Pharaohs were long pushed to the margins. For a long time, many historians and European scholars of the 19th and early 20th century struggled to accept that a sophisticated African kingdom had once ruled Egypt. Some downplayed the Kushite achievement. Others tried to separate the Nubian rulers from the true Egyptian tradition. The idea that black African kings had sat on the throne of the pharaohs did not fit the racial assumptions of that era. Only in recent decades has the full significance of the 25th dynasty been more widely recognized. Archaeological work in Sudan, the re-examination of statues and inscriptions, and a more honest approach to African history have slowly restored the Black Pharaohs to their proper place. Today we can see them more clearly, not as outsiders or temporary invaders, but as rulers who genuinely believed they were restoring the soul of Egypt, and who for a time succeeded. Their story forces us to rethink the borders of ancient civilization, and to remember that the history of the Nile Valley is far richer, and more complex than the simplified version many of us were taught. The Kingdom of Kush and its Black Pharaohs remind us of a simple but powerful truth. History is rarely as simple as the stories we are first told. For nearly a century, African kings ruled the greatest civilization of the ancient world. They restored temples, claimed the legacy of the pharaohs, and left their names carved in stone from Nubia to the Delta. And then, for a long time, their achievement was minimized or forgotten. Today we can finally see them more clearly, not as a footnote, but as one of the most remarkable chapters in the long history of the Nile. Thank you for watching this journey into the forgotten Kingdom of Kush. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next episodes. In the next video, we will travel to one of the most isolated places on Earth and confront one of archaeology's greatest unsolved mysteries. The Rongorongo script of Easter Island, the undeciphered writing of a lost civilization. See you in the next one.